Hey y'all, it's not time. I know it's late, but I haven't been feeling good today either. I've been a little bit better, but not up to par of doing things. I'm gonna try to move this up here where maybe it's a little bit better. And it sits crooked because the clip goes on sideways. So, 1 second. Turn my lights on, but I know they're gonna die, so I have to use my phone not to. But let's go ahead and get started with our devotional. This is our last week, and it's day 1. And I believe we have, let me check. We have 5 days. So, and today is day 1. I can't believe we've almost finished this whole book. We have 1 week left, y'all. So, anyways, it says, focus brings freedom. Our quick quitting verse for the day is, so that you won't become lazy, but will be imitators of those who inherit the promises through the faith and perseverance. Hebrews 6:12. A few months ago, my daughter's 4x800-meter relay team made it to the state championships. My daughter told me her only goal was to beat the team with the yellow uniforms. Her competitive nature has at times thrown off her running ability. So I looked my girl in the eye and said, Taylor, remember, stay in your lane, run hard, and pass the baton. She nodded her head and took off. And do you know what happened? Her team has not only finished the race strong, but they beat the school record. Focus brought her freedom. Habit 5, she moves forward in faith. As we enter into our 5th final habit, she moves forward in faith. This is a need for a high level of focus. All of the habits this might be the most important for you and me is really the final step and push toward becoming a woman who completes her God assignments. Last week, we left on the edge of our seats to see how the situation with Boaz and this next man in line for Ruth was going to play out. We saw a huge shift in Naomi, and now Ruth is in a holding pattern. She's writing, but she is waiting with focus. My friend, this is hard when we are committed to sticking something out with God. There isn't a timeline he has to follow. He's not on a deadline, and it's a complicated process. And sometimes moving forward in faith means standing completely still, which is where we're picking back up with Ruth. She's standing still. With her eyes on the end goal, the process is completely out of her hands now. As Naomi said, well, my daughter, until you find out what happens for the man, will not rest until the matter is settled today. Ruth 3:18. She is correct, and just like Ruth is in a holding pattern, so is Boaz. So it says read Ruth 4:1-2. What does it say Boaz did in verse 1? And then we'll come back and see which one it said. So Ruth 4:1-2 says, meanwhile Boaz went up to the town gate and sat there. When the kinsman redeemer he had mentioned came along, Boaz said, come over here, my friend, and sit down. So he went over and sat down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town and said, sit here, and they did so. Then he said to the kinsman redeemer, Naomi, who has come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. So it says, ran to find the other kinsman redeemer. He sat down at the gate or drove to his friend's house to hang out for the day. He sat down at the gate, right? That's what the Bible said. There is something so significant about Boaz taking a seat at the gate. The Hebrew word for sat down is yashab. It means to sit, remain, and dwell. Boaz is not running around the town trying to find this guy. He's sitting, waiting patiently, and carefully planning out this process. Read 2 Chronicles 20:17. Where is God asking you to sit still right now? 2 Chronicles 20:17 says, you will not have to fight this battle. Take up your positions, stand firm, and see the deliverance the Lord will give you. O Judah and Jerusalem, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged. Go out to face them tomorrow, and the Lord will be with you. Okay, and then it says, read John 15:7. How has God shown you to remain in him? John 15:7 says, if you remain in me, my words remain in you. Ask whatever you wish, and it will be given you. Okay, so it goes on into detail. Receiving answers to our prayers is conditional on remaining personally connected to Christ and His Word. It is impossible to have a spiritual productive prayer life apart from knowing, believing, and living by Christ's teachings. As we grow in our relationship with Him through studying and applying His Word, the more our prayers will be in line with Christ's desires and purposes, and the more effective our prayers will be. And yep, that's all. And then it goes to a different verse. It says, read Psalms 91:1. And what does your heart need to dwell in God's presence more? Psalms 91:1 says, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. Goes into detail. This psalm expresses the security we can have by trusting completely in God. It assures us that God will be our refuge and that we may seek His protection in times of spiritual and physical danger. Also goes into who dwells in the shelter of the Most High. This psalm offers security for God's children, those who commit themselves to His plans and protection and who live with a constant awareness of God's presence. The more time we spend communicating with Christ, learning from His Word, and serving His purposes, the greater our peace. Also, we are more likely to recognize and experience a greater sense of freedom in times of trouble and danger. It goes in a little bit more to detail too. It's 91 1 and 2, the Most High. The four names for God in this psalm describe different aspects of His protection. Most High shows Him to be greater than any threat we face. Almighty emphasizes His power to confront and destroy every enemy. The Lord assures us that as the leader of authority in our lives, His presence and guidance are always with us. And my God expresses the truth that God has chosen to have a deep personal relationship with those who trust in Him. I think one of the mistakes I make is believing moving forward in faith requires much movement on my part. Sure, there are times where God asks us to take a huge leaps of faith with Him, but I'm finding there are a lot more days when my moving forward in faith means just being faithful in the day, in and day out, and takes to outtask His life. It's hard to be faithful a day after day and day after day. Taking a risk every now and then seems very vulnerable for most people, but it's those people who get up each day and say, today is a day of moving forward in faith, and get the kids to school, clean the house, drive the carpool, go the extra mile at work, read their Bible, use their words carefully, and honor God with their simple steps that seem to have the greatest impact in life. We have fooled ourselves into believing that serving God is a significant way means standing out on a stage with light, smoke, skinny jeans. What are the two things that today's quick quoted verse tells us to imitate after those who have gone before us? Faith and perseverance go hand in hand. Sometimes perseverance just looks like where we see Boaz and Ruth today, standing still, waiting, holding tight. What are some areas God is asking you to persevere through? In what situation are you still waiting to see the faithfulness of God to be revealed? We are almost to the best part of this story, and we are almost ready to see how all these habits combined are life changing. So sit tight, wink, keep going, and I'll see you on the next page as we see how the small steps we take keep our faith moving forward. Your focus through the rest of this process will bring you freedom. And that's all for tonight, y'all. Um, I can't wait. We have 4 days left, and we have finished this lovely book on a woman who doesn't quit. And this has actually, I've picked it up, laid it back down, picked it up, laid it back down, picked it up, laid it back down. And since I became an ordained pastor, and I thought, being a woman, I have a thing of quitting too. And this book has really helped me, and I've really loved it. And Ruth went through a lot. She went through a lot, just like Job, and that's going to be our next one. When we finish this, we're going to study Job, and I can't wait, y'all. Can't wait. So, comment, tell me what y'all think about this book so far. I love y'all. Jesus loves y'all. Bye.